And we will start from left to right. Left to right. My left to right with the candidates. If they could start with an opening statement, 60 seconds.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm running for the 91st district. I'm kind of a fighter and I see a lot of injustices, and that's why I'm here. I would like to advocate for you and make sure that Adams County is advocated for up there in Harrisburg.
Thank you. Dan?
I'm up. I don't think there's a single person in this room that doesn't know who I am, and I doubt that there's anybody in here that doesn't know what I stand for. And I'm a pretty solid conservative. I'm not so far to the right, I can't see the middle. And that being said, I've learned over the past 20 years, and I know a lot of you probably think, oh, that's too long, but we'll get into that later. But I've learned to build bridges. I've learned to build bridges. You want to get things done where I work, you better build bridges. Wow, 30 seconds already? And that's what's made me so successful at what I do. I've got a great team behind me, and we work very well together. And we'll get into bills and things, I hope, a little bit later on. But I'm also the chairman of agriculture. I grew up on farms right here in Adams County. And right now we have a crisis, an agriculture crisis in Pennsylvania, which we will get into a little bit later as well.
Nick?
Well, good evening. Thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you, Charlotte and the ACRC, for hosting this event. My name is Nick Lovell, and I'm running to be your next state representative because I believe that Adams County is worth fighting for. Our community is filled with hardworking families, dedicated small business owners, and people that care about the community that they live in. And what I believe is that our government should reflect that. We should be focused on solutions to making Pennsylvania more affordable for our families, and focused on solutions to give people a real voice in the issues that matter to them. I believe that too often what we see out of the Harrisburg establishment is focus on protecting the status quo instead of improving it. And I think that that needs to change. I am for leadership that steps up, listens, and delivers results. And as your next state representative, that's exactly what I plan to do. And I would be honored as we move into this evening to earn your support tonight.
Thank you, Nick. I am going to pass around a bin with index cards. Take one and a pen if you don't have one, and pass it on, and you can write your question on it, and then we'll send it around again. Question number 1, this is government reform and transparency. Number 1, on term limits. Do you support term limits for state legislators? If so, what limits would you propose and why? 60 seconds. Nick.
Absolutely. I absolutely think that we should have term limits, because if you take a look back to the founding of our country, we're 250 years in, and our founding fathers self-term limited. They fulfilled that principle on their own because they knew that the power shouldn't stay in the hands of one person for decades at a time. And so I absolutely believe that there should be term limits. What I have talked about is a 12-year term limit, because I think that reasonably balances giving someone a long enough time to be effective with having some content or some change with people coming in. But 12 years with the contingency that we end the lifetime benefits and pension when someone's in for 10 years.
Very good.
Me next?
Yes.
Yeah, term limits, I thought early on, yeah, we want to term limit legislators until you actually get in there and see what's going on. Technically speaking, it shouldn't really be the legislators that are term limited. The problem doesn't really lie with us. The problem lies with bureaucrats. Bureaucrats are all the people that work in those big concrete buildings around the Capitol. They don't answer to the legislature. They answer to the governor. And they're there forever. They call themselves the B team because they say they're going to be there long after guys like me are gone. Okay? And they make what's called regulation. Regulation is every bit as enforceable as any statute or law that we can make in the legislature. And they're the ones that are making it very, very difficult, such as DEP, to get permitting done to help Pennsylvania grow and create more jobs. When we lose big companies like Fairlife that was gonna come here and said, no, we're gonna go across the border into New York where we can get permitting done much easier because of regulation. That's what needs to be term limited, is the bureaucrats.
Lindsay?
I guess I stand somewhere in the middle of both of them. Yes, they both bring very valid points, and I can see term limits being beneficial. But luckily, we actually do already kind of have that. The citizens vote can term limit a candidate immediately. So even though I know everyone's deterred and sometimes feels their voice isn't heard and they don't matter, you do. And if you don't vote, then I don't know anymore. I guess it can't be counted. The regulations that Dan speaks on, I think there needs to be a little bit more oversight on them, because as he spoke on the permitting issues and UCC and IPMC and all of those, that's near and dear to my heart, and they have some issues. I think 10 to 12 years is probably a rational. Nick's right on that. But it takes so long, I think, to get things moving, that I fear that we do run the risk of, as we replace new, not so. I've been red lighted.
You can finish your
Okay.
sentence if you
Finish it.
want, like,
There's like 203 seats, so as we replace them, right? These people, I fear we push out good people just by strictly for the sake of a term limit, as we rebuild our government in this 250 years.
so what I'm gonna try to do is start each question with, like, the first question, was Nick. This next question will go to, the incumbent Rep. Moul. Recall mechanism. Would you support a constitutional amendment to create a recall process for elected officials at the state and local levels? This is a yes or no.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd take Bill's
Lindsay?
answer that one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Legislative time session, or legislative session time. What percentage, Lindsay, you're first. What percentage of time do you believe Pennsylvania House members should spend in session in Harrisburg while leaving room to work directly in their legislative districts? 60 seconds.
This was never necessarily meant to be a full-time job, but it comes with a really huge salary, which is vastly unnecessary and frankly really low. Every day, every rational day, they should be up there advocating and educating. I don't think this is a job that comes with office hours. So if that means after hours is when you spend the time getting the constituents' concerns, that's what it means.
Okay. Nick? We're gonna keep circling.
Okay.
Yep.
I believe absolutely that the government, the legislators should be, if they're making this big salary, they should be working their tails off every single day fighting for the people of Adams County. And so I think that they need to be up there probably more often than they are. From what I understand, it's probably half the month or so. So I think that they need to be up there for a decent amount of time to allow room for legislation. They also need to be in their districts talking to their local communities, because you can't represent people that you don't talk to. And so they need to be here, but they also need to be doing their jobs. If they're gonna get paid a full-time salary, they should be doing full-time work.
The session schedule is set by the Speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
The Speaker determines what days we're in session. Normally, they're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because we have people that come in from as far away as Erie, and they have to get home to their districts. There's things to do. When somebody says, yeah, it's a part-time job, put in the hours I put in sometime, then talk about it. Don't talk about it until you do my hours. I started this morning at 7 a.m. at the Wyndham, and I just left Harrisburg to get here at 6:15. That's actually a shorter day for me. There's a lot of days when I'm in Harrisburg, like next Tuesday, I know I will not get home till 9, 10 o'clock at night. I've got functions that I need to do, I've got meetings, and there's people that want to see you. And when I'm in the district, take a look at my schedule sometime. Just take a look at it and see how full it is, and see how much time a state representative to do the job right. And I do everything. I go just about everywhere I'm asked to go. I speak just about everywhere I'm asked to speak. It's not a 40-hour job. Just ask my wife, she'll tell you. There's weeks go by, she barely sees me. So, yeah, it's not a part-time job.
Question number 4, public notices, legal advertising. Nick is up first, and then we'll. Would you champion legislation to amend Title 45 of the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes to modernize public notice requirements, permitting a menu of options such as websites, community newspapers, and online print publications to continue maintaining transparency while reducing high production or publication cost and eliminating the tax dollars from subsidizing print media, which many of us refer to as fake news? 60 seconds, Lindsay. Or,
I think that you were gonna
Nick,
start with
I'm
me.
sorry.
That's okay. I absolutely believe that we need to do that. I was actually just talking with my friend Dr. Moyer about this the other day in our board leadership, because we've got a meeting that we had to re-advertise. Absolutely, the fact that the requirements to do luckily we have the Gettysburg Times that is available. Other places in the Commonwealth, they don't have a readily accessible newspaper outlet. I think that in the 21st century, we have the capability for the websites and social media to get the word out in an appropriate manner, that we're still being transparent, meeting all of the agenda notification requirements of the Sunshine Act, while still making things easier on the government entities. So I would absolutely support that.
This bill has actually been talked about very, very recently in Harrisburg, and I'm hoping it comes up for a vote. Unfortunately for a lot of our newspapers, I'll give Nick credit on this one. He knows that there's a lot of places, especially in the northern T of Pennsylvania, where there are no weekly publications or daily publications. And it makes it very difficult for somebody in a remote county up north, and they have to put it in newsprint, so they got to go all the way to Williamsport or all the way to Lock Haven to publish something for back in their county that might be 50 miles away, and nobody gets that paper back there, but the law says that you have to do that. I'm all about giving the townships, boroughs, and schools the right to do their advertising on digital out in the media. So that's the way we're going in this country. People are getting their news off the computer these days, and newsprint is slowly, unfortunately, dying.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I'm all about saving $1 or $3 on a slushie. I do worry a little bit about the older people who actually don't. I was very surprised in these door-to-door campaigns, learning how many people still are like, no computers, no email, no cell phones. So we really need to be mindful of how we're gonna get the word to them and come up with a solution for that too. But absolutely utilizing social media and electronic options is a great option.
Thank you. Next question. This is on right to know law. Would you support amending section 1307 of the Right to Know Law Act 3 of 2008 to allow local government agencies to charge reasonable fees covering all costs associated with fulfilling records request, including staff time and preparation of digital records? And the purpose of this question is that the right to know process is being abused, not widely, but it is being abused to where it is costing not just municipalities but school districts quite a substantial amount of money, and there's no way to recoup that. You were next. 60 seconds.
Because of the abuse, I understand the theory behind reasonable fees. Sometimes I think reasonable fees can also be weaponized. So we need to be mindful of that. However, if the transparency is there, especially when organizations get the same right to know on the same topic, why isn't it just on the front page of the website to access? So if we have that transparency on the information, the right to know doesn't need to go in. We're not wasting taxpayer dollars to get to it. We're not wasting staff time to research it again. It seems like that would kind of solve the problem on all ends.
Thank you.
That's swing it back to you.
Yep.
I would sort of support that, the reasonable fees. I think that no school district probably knows as well as mine the weaponization that people have used the right to know law. Transparency is very important, and I absolutely, the right to know law is there for a reason, the Sunshine Act's there for a reason, and I wholeheartedly support those. But when people abuse the system and cost a school district, which is your taxpayer dollars, thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees and man hours looking for things that don't even exist, and then they appeal it to the state office of open records and are just doing so in sort of a malicious manner, that shouldn't be allowed without any sort of repercussion. So I would support that.
Thank you. Next question?
No?
No?
Don't you want my answer?
No.
Just skip over me? Okay.
No, go ahead.
Data shopping is a problem. I get that. And it has been abused. And sometimes you have clerical people in offices that spend a lot of their day doing nothing but right to know requests for data shopping, okay? We do want to be open and transparent. There's no question about that. People have the right to know. When you're in a position like mine, you got to take every word in language and decipher it. So as part of the bill, it's easy to say reasonable fees. Put a definition to the word reasonable, okay? So reasonable might be to one local government or one school. The next school might say that's not reasonable at all, and we're going to charge a different amount. So how do you come up with the definition of reasonable? How do you come up with, well, it cost us this much to do it, okay? So we assigned a secretary to work on this for a whole week, okay? What's reasonable and what isn't reasonable? In my profession, you got to define, you got to put definitions in for certain words like reasonable.
Thank you. The next question is on campaign finance and accountability. Taxpayers deserve transparency about who is funding campaigns. Have you voluntarily filed a period 1 campaign finance report? If yes, why? If no, why not? Same rotation.
No, I actually am in communication, make sure I'm doing everything right, because it's just me. I don't have a team, I don't have consultants. It's me, my printer, in the middle of the night, doing what I do. And the day that I thought that that was due, she actually replied, and I do have that email, saying the governor and lieutenant governor were due on that day. And with that said, I am extremely big on transparency. And I think if anybody has seen my print materials or my sign with a slightly crooked U, I think it's pretty evident that I don't have a bunch of funding behind me. I don't want to go to the citizens that I'm fighting for who are struggling and say, hey, can you give me money for a $65,000 campaign? Because I want to put money into Adams County, not take it out. So that means that I have to do it myself and do it with 37 cents of scrap vinyl, whatever it is. Is it not professional? Maybe, but trying to save money and trying to help the county all at the same time. But don't worry, it will be filed, the one that's due.
Thank you.
I did file my Cycle 1 campaign finance report, even though it's not required, because I do believe that transparency matters. And I think that the citizens of Adams County have the right to know where all of our campaign dollars are coming from. And it's very important to me to be fully transparent with that, and that's why I did that.
That leaves it up to me, and I have the best treasurer anybody could possibly have. He's a CPA, and he dots every I and crosses every T, and he says, Dan, just sign here. And he sends it in electronically, and anybody that wants to see any of ours, all they have to do is go on the Department of State website, look it up, and all the information is right there. you can see every single person that donated any amount of money to any candidate. It should all be there.
So did you file it?
For period one, you filed for period one.
I would assume he just has me sign papers. He fills them all out for me, he says sign here, and he scans them and sends them in.
So for this election.
No,
I know there's one coming due.
the question was, have you voluntarily filed? Period one is not required.
And it wouldn't be
But-
filed yet. He files on time. when
The
it's
question
due.
was, have you voluntarily filed for period one campaign finance report? It is not required to file yet. That's why it was, have you voluntarily filed for period one? Thank you all for your answers. Number 7, property tax relief plan. I'm gonna skip that one for now.
That's a good one.
Well, we might circle back to that. Oh gosh, circle back, Saki. Yeah. If anybody remembers that.
Vividly.
Jen Saki. Yeah, we'll circle back to it. Senior property tax elimination, and we're just gonna continue with the same rotation. Recent legislation was introduced in the Senate. It would eliminate property taxes for seniors aged 75 and older, among other provisions. Would you support this bill as written if it reaches the House?
Who's first?
We should probably switch up who's going first.
Right.
I think, are you first?
She
Just-
went first last time.
Dan,
so-
just go.
Just go?
Roll with it.
Would I, of course, who wouldn't vote for a bill to eliminate property taxes or reduce or freeze property taxes for seniors? It'd be crazy not to. However, the way that bill's written and the way every other bill has been written that would do that, you gotta take one other step first. And I will tell you, there's a lot of smart people that's come through Harrisburg. Lots and lots of really, really smart people. And you know something? Since before I got there, they've been trying to figure out how to fix property taxes for people. One little thing you gotta do first, and that's change the Constitution, because in the Constitution of Pennsylvania, we have this little thing called a uniformity clause, which means everyone must be taxed equally. That's seniors right down to the smallest, youngest person there is to tax that owns a house or pays taxes. They all have to be charged equally. So before you pass that bill or any bill that'll change taxes, you've gotta change the Constitution first.
Lindsay next.
I would not support that bill as written, because I believe that bill actually says that the person 75 or older has to live in their house for 10 years. What happens if a woman's spouse dies and she has to downsize because she can't take care of the square footage of it? And then she sells it, she moves, and then there you go. That's not 10 years. Okay, great. So, and also, why wait till 75? Some people retire before 75. I'm a huge proponent that houses should not have taxes associated with them at all, especially unrealized gains. And we did just have a constitutional amendment, which I have spoken about ad nauseum on my page, that came across the legislator a couple weeks ago for disassociating property taxes that did not go through 99 to 100. That's how close we are for that one. And it went before the special election people could be voted in. So I'm curious how that would have gone had they been voted in.
Thank you. Nick?
I think that any step towards giving seniors property tax relief is a good one. I think that there can be ways around the uniformity clause, like a rebate program that we can give to the people that would qualify, as well as I think that at the end of the day, we need to eliminate property taxes for everybody, not just seniors. I think that working families are being hit with property taxes. Other states, similar to Pennsylvania, like Florida, have been able to do it. I think that we can make that happen. And so that's what I think that the major step around the uniformity clause into providing real property tax relief is eliminating them altogether.
Thank you. Education funding and school choice. We will start with Lindsay. I'm actually writing notes so I can keep track of who's going. Would you support legislation allowing tax dollars to follow the student to the public, private, or charter school of their choice?
I do support school choice. I would like to see how that exactly works. I have a few concerns about that. One being that if it's the school of their choice, is that possible that students from way outside of Adams County could then come to, say, CBSD, that's where I'm at, and then our students who want to go to CBSD, say it's close, would that take a seat away from them? That's my only real super concern, I believe, at this time, but I do support school choice and private schools included in that. That's all.
Okay.
I'm done this time for real.
Nick?
Question one more time.
Would you support legislation allowing tax dollars to follow the students to the public, private, or charter school of their choice?
I believe that that would be rational, because that's the way that the cyber charter funding works, but I think that it needs to be fair, and I don't think that we should allow, whether it be cyber charters or private schools or whatever, to charge huge amounts of money that are greatly impacting our public school tax dollars that are taking away, and some of the tactics in which they use. When we have a student that leaves our school district to go to a cyber charter that had no special education needs, and then they're immediately tested for an IEP, and then they're allowed to charge double under the current law. And that's what happens to a lot of students that go to these cyber charter schools. So I think that we need to see further reform in that area to make sure that they're not being able to rip off our public school tax dollars.
Thank you.
But I do believe in school choice, and that parents should be able to make the educational decisions for their children.
Dan?
I'm 100% all about school choice, especially in this day and age. It's up to the parents. You are correct that there is some overcharging and some shenanigans going on with cybers. There's no question about that. I wish that the education committee would come out with a bill that I could vote on that would fix that. I'm the agriculture chairman, so I don't get a chance to actually work on that bill myself, but that does need to be fixed. However, in this day and age, especially with vo-tech education, people are finding out that the old mantra, well, if you don't go to college, you'll never amount to a damn thing. Well, that's in the past. We need to teach our kids skills. So if a parent wants to send their child to a school that offers some vo-tech, like CBSD over at New Oxford, if there's a seat available and your child wants to fill it and he's first in line, no matter where he's from, that seat ought to belong to him. If it's available in the school, your students would come first, have an open seat, somebody else should be able to fill that seat for vo-tech. I'm a huge vo-tech fan.
Thank you. Before we go to the next question, I'm gonna pass the bin around if you wanna drop your index card with your question in here so we can, have them collected. The next question is education funding and reform, staying on the same topic. How would you address education funding in Pennsylvania while protecting local control, improving accountability for results, and avoiding simply increasing spending? That would be me or Dan. I know you just Lindsay answered the last question first, so Nick is next on this one.
Question. Can you repeat that question?
How would you address education funding in Pennsylvania while protecting local control and improving accountability for results and avoiding simply increasing spending? It's a loaded question.
Well, Local control is very important. I'm a small government conservative, and I believe our government should focus on the lowest possible, or should function on the lowest possible level, because that's what's closest to the people. In every school district in Pennsylvania, we have 9 elected school board members that the citizens have put in that are responsible for that district. But we have to do our part at the state level to fund education, and I think that we need to improve the education funding formula. I think that more work needs to be done in that regard. And I also think that one of the things that we can prevent from continuing to harm our budgets is the unfunded and underfunded mandates. I have a list right here, I'm not gonna read them, but this is a full-page list of unfunded education mandates that the state passes down to the school districts. And they say, you have to do this, but we're gonna give you no money to do it. And I think that needs to end, and I think that our legislators need to put a stop to that.
Dan?
Do you guys all remember just a little while ago when we talked about term limits? And I said, it's really not us, because technically we're all term limited to 2 years. You have a right to change us every 2 years. And I talked about the bureaucrats behind the making regulations behind the scenes that you never get to vote on, okay? There's your perfect example. That list he just showed you, that's your perfect example of bureaucrats making regulation, okay? And we have no control over that in the legislature because they report to the governor. And those, again, they're the B team. They're gonna be there after guys like me are gone. We give them an umbrella, they make the regulations under it. We can't undo regulation without passing statute to do it. And that is not an easy thing to do, but I agree 100%. It's the regulations that's making schools spend more than they should. As far as the funding, more than 1/3 of our budget in all of Pennsylvania in this last year was $50.2 billion. More than 1/3 of that goes into education.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I think it's interesting that the question included the words local control. Occasionally, as I've sat on school board, I've wondered, was the creation of a school board sometimes made to just make us a scapegoat? Because we have very little control over the budget because of that list that Nick referenced. And if it's because of the bureaucrats, then the legislation. I watched an education live committee meeting. It was like 23 minutes or something. How are you supposed to accomplish if you're only 23 minutes? That's a committee I would just love to be on. As for the funding, there was a lawsuit several years ago about unfair funding, and they were supposed to make it right. Our district was one that was highly affected. Those making it right aren't moving very quickly. But best believe if we owed the government money or what they thought we owed, they would be harassing us left and right. She's waving that red and distracting me.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was another point, but.
Lost it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Dan, this question, you'll start this round off. Dan, Lindsay, then Nick. Right to know or right to farm and farmland protection. What specific steps would you take to strengthen Pennsylvania's right to farm laws and protect productive farmland from overdevelopment while still addressing housing needs?
Good question. We were just talking about local government. As you know, you sit on one, and it's up to local zoning to either allow or disallow farmland to be built on. That's not something that is handled in the legislature. Do I like to see my farmland? Now keep in mind, I grew up in farms. I'm the chairman of agriculture. The last thing I like to see is farmland being developed. And right now in Cumberland County, there's a whole raft of data centers scheduled to be built on some really prime farmland. That breaks my heart. Can I tell that local government, no, you can't do that? Can I tell that farmer, you can't sell your land, even though that's his retirement? His kids have grown and moved away. They don't want to do that hard work anymore, so he's stuck. He didn't have a pension to live on. He probably doesn't have a 401k. His land is his livelihood, and his land is also his retirement. So, do you tell the farmer he can't do it if the township says you can? That's a quick question, and we can't do it. That is controlled at the local level with voting.
Lindsay?
I think farmland is, I think we're all gonna have that same part of the answer. Be it municipalities or the state legislators. I absolutely detest data centers, and I heard an interesting fact last week that like 70% of businesses, corporations in Pennsylvania don't actually pay taxes for one loophole or another. I bet if we start implementing that 70%, those data centers would be less inclined to try and steal our farmland with egregious offers to the farmer owners. And you can't necessarily blame the owner, you know, in Dan's example, you know, their son's gone, they can't handle the workload, what are they supposed to do, you know? But we do need to find a way to keep our farmland, get the solar, I mean, I guess they didn't really come when, but you know what I mean, the solar panels, that wasn't even gonna benefit Adams County while we're having outages, and that's going to Pitt and Philly. So we do need to be mindful of that.
Thank you. Actually, I do have a response on these, about 70% of corporate do not pay taxes. It's the corporate tax, and there's a loophole that needs to be fixed in Harrisburg. They're taking advantage of it from Delaware, but they're still paying property taxes. So I just wanted to point out that there is a loophole that needs to be fixed. Nick?
Yeah, I'm gonna be consistent with my last answer. I believe in local control and local government, and I think that we have to let our local communities make decisions about what are best for them. Because there's been some people that said, well, we, at a state level, should just stop it. Well, we have a Democratic governor, we have a Democratic House by one seat right now, so we'll see what happens in the election this year, but we don't want to necessarily leave it to them. We always want to have the control here in Adams County of what's best for our community. Harrisburg has failed us on issue after issue, and I don't want them being in charge of the things that we should be taking care of locally. So I think that in terms of any development that's going in, that's why we elect municipalities and townships and borough supervisors and council people. And I think that they should be involved in hearing their constituents and the residents of their communities to make those decisions. And when needed, fight back like residents did in Mount Joy Township with the solar panels.
Staying similar topic, municipal zoning. There is an ongoing discussion in Harrisburg about municipal zoning authority and land use decisions. Do you believe the state should play, I think I already know because I'll just almost answered it. Do you believe the state should play a more active role in local zoning decisions? That is a yes or no. We'll just go from left to right.
Yes.
Okay, Dan?
No.
Nick? Okay, this is a follow-up comment. Yielding more power to the state removes municipal authority to reject data centers. Taking it up to the state gives them the unilateral authority to tell a municipality where a data center can go, like they did with the gambling casinos. I can't remember, I'm pointing to you because this happened maybe 2019, where they had that bill that came down to all the municipalities on rejecting or accepting where casinos could go. That is the direction. So you're against keeping the authority at the local level. You want to take it up to.
Well, you said it was a yes/no answer.
Correct.
So I can elaborate. So there's certain things I think need handled.
So 60 seconds on why?
Because I think sometimes, and let me be clear, not necessarily in Conewaga Township, we have zoning officers who manipulate and weaponize things. And it's easier for people to pay it and take the abuse over their property than it is to hire a municipal attorney. Try to find a municipal attorney in this area, not gonna happen. They're all solicitors and they work for the municipalities. You also have things like IPMC, which have been instilled into all the local municipalities. And the initial intent to that is I might have to elaborate more on this later on Facebook. They make this big old book and then the municipality adopts it, but they adopt the year. When the original organization updates that and finds flaws, the municipality isn't required to then update that. So that has some conflicting issues. And if your neighbor has an issue with God knows what and wants to harass you through the municipality, they can do that over petty stuff. If Grandma Betty can't mow her lawn because she just had a hip replacement, the logical thing would be to go help her mow the lawn, not give her a $1,000 fine.
You wanna do like maybe 30 seconds, Dan, on why you don't support? 30 seconds, Harrisburg having more control over municipal?
We have the FPC code for a reason. You know, it's municipal planning code. It's there for a reason, because we are a commonwealth, okay? We're not a state. A lot of people get that confused. Difference between commonwealth and a state is we have another level of government. That's our local level, and the schools. That makes us a commonwealth. We have that because we put the trust in local government to make their own decisions, and our decisions shouldn't be forced upon local government. Therefore, I answered this just a little while ago. I think I did about the same answer. It's not up to us to tell you how to manage your townships and your boroughs. What you decide goes. And if your township or borough decides to change the zoning to allow data center or solar panels or whatever it is, that's up to the local people. And I'm not about, as a state legislator, to try to take that right away from them. So my answer is no. We do not want to take that right away.
Nick, you wanna just?
I agree.
Very brief.
I'll be very brief. I've made myself pretty clear already. And you can't just say that on the things that we disagree with this particular local government or municipality on, that's when we're going to override their rights. So my answer stands that we have to have local control and trust our local governments.
Thank you. The next one is yes or no. We'll do Nick, Lindsay, Dan. Would you support repealing Act 77 to eliminate the no excuse mail-in ballots?
Yes, I would. And if I were the state representative.
That was a yes or no.
Oh, was it a yes? Did she say yes or no?
Yes, she did.
Well, if you give us some time to respond, I'd love to.
So this is where, if anybody here wants to have a further discussion with any candidate up here on the questions that was raised tonight, feel free to reach out to them. There's quite a few more, and I want to get to the other candidate's question. Dan, yes or no?
Yes, I would repeal it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay. All the right answers. Do you support, this is also a yes or no, we'll just do in the same rotation. Do you support requiring voter ID at the polls?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Next question, we will start with,
Lost your track, didn't you? Who's
well,
up?
look, I'm keeping notes here. Should have had a tracker for me here. We'll start with Dan, then Nick, then Lindsay. Would you support legislation that prohibits sanctuary cities or counties in Pennsylvania and requires all local governments and law enforcement agencies to cooperate fully with federal immigration authorities? You can answer a yes or no with a very brief, like
I'll give
30
you the
second
brief
answer.
first. You're just throwing those meatballs right down the middle of the plate. We're all gonna hit them over the fence. Absolutely.
But it needs to be said. It needs
Yes.
to be asked and it needs to
There
be
should
said.
be no such thing as a sanctuary city in Pennsylvania, or anywhere in this country for that matter.
Okay. Nick?
Yes, absolutely. No local government, we believe in local government, that doesn't mean that they have the right to violate federal laws and the laws of our land, so absolutely no sanctuary cities.
agreed, there's the meatball, if we have to follow the laws, and even if we don't know a law, you know, ignorance of a law is no excuse. Why in the world would the, well, government not follow its own laws? But that's the point.
Okay, thank
Not
you.
that they don't do that sometimes, I guess.
Next question, Lindsay, Dan, Nick. This is on fire department reimbursement. Would you be willing, this is also a yes or no, would you be willing to introduce legislation requiring insurance companies to directly reimburse fire departments for the cost of responding to emergencies such as structure fires, vehicle accidents, and other incidents?
Yes.
Dan?
Okay, yes, but there has to be very specific language written into it.
Yes.
You can't just say, oh, yes, you pay the bill. That you're gonna have to be, again, we go back to like the definition for
There's a
reasonable.
convoluted process because insurance companies are involved, yes.
You're talking about something that's gonna be, that it's gonna be a bill this thick.
Yes.
Okay, and you gotta do it word for word, but yes.
Yes, through good legislation.
And the purpose for the question is because, as everyone here knows, that local fire departments are very strained on their financial resources, and volunteer fire departments are hurting even more. And they go to any emergency call, they are not reimbursed for that. However, if an ambulance is sent out to a home, the insurance company is billed for that and they pay that. However, fire departments aren't.
I agree.
Next question, second amendment, we're just gonna go straight down the line. Yes or no?
Comes another meatball.
Yes. Would you reject any and all legislation that would infringe on the rights protected by the Second Amendment?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Again, these questions had to be asked and answered, so they're on the record. If elected or re-elected, what is one specific bill or initiative you would prioritize within the first 24 months that benefits directly for the 91st district? Dan?
Wow.
I know, pick one.
That's a tough one. I'm currently introducing a bill right now to assist with our fruit farmers who just had a crisis. Most of you probably aren't up on this, and I don't expect you to be, but as chairman of agriculture, I must be. Just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we had a freeze like we haven't had in over a century. We had a few warm days, the trees started to bud, everything was coming out, and we went into a 25-degree freeze that lasted over 48 hours. And the fruit crop is going to be decimated this year. Now, I put the co-sponsorship out yesterday, had a meeting with the Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, my counterpart in the Agriculture Committee, the chairman. We had a meeting in my office. We decided that it'll be my bill to enhance the Rapid Response Fund to help agriculture. It was created for HPAI, that's high path avian influenza. Now we're gonna add helping the fruit farmers to make up the difference so that they can stay in business. They feed us, and it's important to keep them, especially here in Adams County.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Probably my number one, and it's been for a long time, is the property taxes. They need to go, like, that's it. Disassociate it, and an arm of that essentially would be the way they're assessed for property taxes. Paying unrealized gains, not okay.
Nick?
Property taxes are huge, but one of the things that I think that would have the most immediate need right now, if I were the state representative right now, I would be working on the gas tax. I think that it is a shame that our gas tax is the second highest in the nation. And I think that 58 cents per gallon of gas and the 72 cents a gallon of diesel, to lower that or eliminate that for a certain period of time while the prices are so high, would provide a lot of real relief for our families across the Commonwealth, and I think that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Now, these are questions from the index cards, specifically for Dan, and I will try to keep this balanced. How will you advance the Save Women's Sports Act in the House? Let's try to keep these 30 seconds so we leave time for open discussion.
It's easy, that bill's already there and I'm a yes vote. I'm absolutely yes vote. Men don't belong, biological men do not belong in women's sports.
No, the question was, how will you advance in the House?
The bill is already there. The only way I can advance it is to vote for it.
Can you whip up the rest of your?
We're all on the
Comrades.
same page in the Republican caucus in the
That's
House
not
of
right.
Representatives.
Yeah, okay. Given for Lindsay and Nick, do you support the Save Women's Sports Act?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and if I were the state representative, I would do more than just voting for it. I'd be knocking on the doors of my colleagues. I would be calling up people on both sides of the aisle. It's great that all the Republicans are for it. They should be for it, or else they shouldn't be Republicans. But even the Democrats, there's no excuse for allowing men and women's sports, and we've got to fight that, and we've got to be proactive in terms of advancing legislation and not just waiting for it to come to us for a vote.
Okay. Now this next question, some of the ones that are on the cards have already been asked, and this has got two parts on it, so I'm going to skip the first one about data centers. The next one I think is a really good question. And we will start with Lindsay, Dan, then Nick. I'm gonna try to keep this Lindsay, Dan, Nick. How would you react if another lockdown was attempted today?
I mean, probably the same way I reacted the first time. You know, no, thank you very much. I think each individual, if you are scared of a lockdown, stay home. I mean, not a lockdown, of a bioweapon outbreak or whatever, bat flu, then stay home. You know, there's people with immunocompromised systems, and that might be for them. But a mandate where we're shutting down businesses, unless of course it's the governor's, then that's a no-go.
Thank you, and we'll keep it to like 30 seconds, Dan.
Yeah, obviously, we went through that with the last governor. It was pathetic. When the governor does an executive order, which is how that happened, through his Secretary of Health, and I don't need to tell anybody in this room how wacko that guy was. And I say that honestly. I mean, he wore a dress to the Capitol the whole 9 yards. That's not my cup of tea. But, that takes a lawsuit to change the executive order, contrary to what my one opponent just said. To bring something to the House floor, I don't care how many doors you beat on to put a law up there, it's up to the leadership and the speaker of the majority party. So right now, they're in the majority. The Democrats are, only by one, but they're in the majority. And they aren't gonna run a bill like that goes against their governor. So what it would take is a lawsuit to go against the governor's executive order. That's how you get that done.
Nick?
I think that we absolutely have to not allow a lockdown. That's something that I come from a small business family, and we were deemed non-essential during the lockdown of 2020, and that's horrible. No family should have to go through that, and we have to stop that from happening. So I think that we have to do that. I want to respond to that. We don't. I was meaning your statement, but I'll respond. I don't believe that we should necessarily just throw our hands up in the air because the Democrats are in the majority. Then you said when you talk about the Save Women's Sports, the bill's on the floor, and so it's for the legislators to advocate for its advancement and for things that we want to get through. You don't just throw your hands up in the air and say Democrats are in the majority, we have no control. They set the agenda. You got to get out and work for
Since I was referenced, can I respond on that? I think that's part of the rules.
Was that in a negative way?
No, I just.
Yeah,
for
we'll give you 30
for
seconds.
clarity,
We'll
you
be
know,
fair, we'll give you 30
you know,
seconds.
It sounds good.
But if you mention his name, he's gonna get 30 seconds.
Yeah. I think conversation is a good thing.
It is,
You know,
it is.
You know,
30
one word
seconds.
answers,
Yes.
you know,
Go ahead.
you know, I think we all should have a chance to explain things. And the way it actually does work up there is when the Democrats say, we're not interested in running that women in sport, or men and women's sports bill. We're not gonna run it. You can beat on as many doors as you want, but when the speaker or the leader says that bill's not gonna run, the only thing that you have left is a bargaining chip, okay? And that comes with the Appropriations Committee and the budget. And you say, well, if you want this, we want that bill run. Unfortunately, again, we're outnumbered, so we have to ask the Senate, who is in the majority, to use that bargaining chip. That's how it kind of works up there. You can beat on as many doors as you want. But if the leader of the Democrat Party and the speaker say no, you'll never see that bill come to the House floor.
I think that there's another tool,
Well, I'm all ears, because I've been there for 20 years.
discharge petitions.
30
Oh,
seconds.
discharge resolutions, and what they do is they move it to another committee.
So, well, but if you get a
30
discharge.
seconds.
Yep, absolutely. There's a tool called a discharge petition. If you're able to get people on the other side of the aisle to agree with you, doesn't have to be the speaker, doesn't have to be the majority leader, but if you're able to get the discharge down to the floor, that's the way that you advance it. And if they move it to another committee, then you do it again. You gotta fight for this stuff.
Can I chime in just for like 10 seconds?
Sure.
I understand. Sorry, I am actually a candidate too. Dan pointed out how it works up there, and I understand how things work, but this is the reason we need to change it up, because yes, you have to play the game by the rules of the game you're in, but we still need to get this changed. Bargaining chips and multi-topic bills where things are forgotten about or pushed through, that's unacceptable. One topic, keep moving forward. And as for knocking on doors, it doesn't have to, who says that I can't go to a different county and be like, do you know what your legislator's voting for?
Okay, next question. Don't ever get old, by the way, for all the young people in the room, because you'll have to get these. Would you do anything to address the somewhat subpar quality of Pennsylvania roads? Somewhat subpar quality of Pennsylvania roads. Nick, Dan, and Lindsay.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that infrastructure is important, transportation is important. I was actually just talking to, when I was door knocking yesterday, I met a civil engineer that works on transportation projects, and that was his number one issue is our transportation funding. So we need to make sure that the transportation's funded. We need to make sure that projects are being done efficiently by PennDOT, and that things aren't just a multi-month or multi-year or whatever the case may be project, just because we want it to be. And so I think that we need efficiency, we need to cut any waste that there is, but I think absolutely we need to address roads. And I think that addressing the roads we have, I don't know if this topic's gonna come up, but I also think that we should try to fix the roads we have and not create new ones through eminent domain and taking people's houses, like was done with the Eisenhower Drive, or is going to be done with the Eisenhower Drive extension.
Can I have 15 minutes to explain this?
No, actually,
Oh.
just for anybody in the room, a few years ago, I bought this timer specifically for Dan at our events because he kept going over his time. But it doesn't really do 60 seconds accurately, so we're using a phone.
All right, you can't have it both ways, all right? You can't say, let's take PennDOT's funding away by taking the gas tax away or even reducing it, as much as we all don't want to pay higher gas taxes or even the gas tax that's there. I heard that we have the second highest gas tax in the country. Yeah, we do. We have the second highest amount of state-owned roads in the country also, is right here in Pennsylvania. Remember, there's very few county-owned roads and very few county-owned bridges. There's local roads, but the state has the second highest number of state-owned highway miles in Pennsylvania. Now, they get their money to maintain roads through the gas tax. So if you take that away and reduce it, where's the state gonna get their money? How are you gonna fill that back with the state? Do we raise other taxes? Do we take money out of something that you really need or something out of you really need and put it in there? Well, that's gonna upset those people too. So unfortunately, we are in a high tax or a high gas price situation, but the taxes haven't changed in quite a few years, okay? And the last time they changed, it was over 20 years since we raised them, okay? Over 20 years. Equipment costs double in those 20 years, labor costs double, insurance costs double, but yet we're taking in the same amount of money because vehicles are getting twice the mileage and trucks are getting twice the mileage as they used to. So it's a big issue, I agree, and taking their funding away isn't the way to solve it, sorry.
I don't know about you, but my vehicle is not getting twice the gas mileage, especially with this ethanol change. No, we don't need to take the funding away, but we also have something when roads are built or repaired, and Nick's completely right on that, where, oh, it'll be 3 months, and then it's like 18 months later, and a bridge this big still isn't fixed. We have prevailing wages, and I think that needs to be tended to, is how it's spent. We all, in society have made a joke at one point where you pull up to the stop sign, one guy's working and 12 guys are on their phones. That can't be. And it's also cutting out local businesses with builds and such, unless they have this like special Blue Star, which is pretty expensive. I don't know I forget what it's called, but those are some reforms that need to happen too. And we shouldn't have falling bridges, that seems pretty common sense. And not redirecting general funds. So don't take the gas tax and put it somewhere else. If this is, gas tax is for the roads, use it for the roads. If you ask for money for something, use it for that, period.
Okay, so, you mentioned prevailing wages, which are a huge issue with any municipality. For instance, to get a roof done on a municipal building, you could call up, if you were not a government body, you could call up your local roofing company and have it done for, let's say, $15,000-$20,000, depending upon, I'm just using guesstimates here, $15,000-$20,000, but because of prevailing wages, that $15,000 to $20,000 is $60,000+ because of prevailing wages. Yes or no? On all three of you.
Way to go, Kathy. That was cute, I like that.
Right. So would each one of you commit to everyone in this room that you will do everything you can within the first 12 months to get something done about the prevailing wages, because that is causing local municipalities and even school districts to have to increase their taxes because of that? So the question, would you do everything that you possibly can to get this moving so the prevailing wages is addressed within the first 12 months? Yes or no? Straight.
Yes.
Well, sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Whoever wrote this question, thank you very much. If you don't pass a budget to fund necessary agencies, do you agree you should not be paid either? We will start with Dan.
When we had a
Only
budget,
because you were on my thing, not because I'm.
when we had a budget stalemate many years ago, when we went into November, I had them hold my paycheck. You know how many people cared about that? Zero. Not one person said, hey, way to go. I made it public. Nobody cared. I think people in Washington, D.C. should not be paid until they pass the Department or the Homeland Security. They should not be paid. We shouldn't be paid either when the budget goes over. We should hold all of our paychecks. I agree. But it's hard to get people to care about that one, but I agree with that 100%.
Lindsay?
I absolutely agree, and I also would like to add that I think it's really ironic that last year, as we sat and had to have our school district budgets in by June, not knowing what was gonna happen, we were all almost forced to take out loans, don't even get me started on the bonds and such, which would stay with us because of the fighting argument contest in Harrisburg. So yeah, I definitely think there should be some repercussions on the pay. If we started on many levels changing pay the way it's done, I think things would be moving real quickly.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that if you don't do your job, you shouldn't get paid. And I think that should apply to the state legislators, just like it applies to each and every one of us. It's been a major part of my platform thus far. I think that it should apply equally in Washington and in Harrisburg. And I'm glad to see that Dan's changed his position on this since one of your last general elections that you contested.
I'm glad to hold my paycheck. Did it before, nobody cared. I mean, if the people come out and said, hey, we want to vote on holding paychecks, if the budget's not got my vote, I mean, I don't really, we're fortunate. My wife and I work very, very hard, and we're very smart about building our businesses. I can do without paycheck. A lot of guys up there can't, but maybe that would be the impetus for them to pass it sooner. But most people don't even realize how a budget's done. You realize it comes down to about 12 to 14 people in Pennsylvania that decides what the budget is. And then they bring it to us usually the day before. It's the leadership of the 4 caucuses that get together and the governor's budget secretary and his people.
And that's the establishment and the status quo at work, and why we need reform across the Commonwealth and new people in these positions that aren't just gonna be dictated to by the leadership.
Next question. We will start with Lindsay, Nick, then Dan. Why are most laws written by lobbyists? Another good one.
Because they pay for it and they want their way. Laws are supposed to, in general, be very cut and clear, not crafted or uncrafted, so it can be twisted and manipulated and weaponized against citizens or whomever they choose to do it. Things should be very specific. Interesting, we just had the Supreme Court, well, not just, maybe a year or two ago, overturned Chevron deference, which basically said the vague laws that they try to keep vague, that the person in the job that's trying to enforce the law gets to interpret it. Chevron deference said, no, thank you. It's gonna go essentially towards the individual benefit.
Yeah.
Well, they shouldn't be by lobbyists. I mean, how I view a major part of the role is solving your problems. And when you have a problem, you should be able to meet with your state representative and present it, and we should be able to work on the solution on your behalf for you. It shouldn't be lobbyists or special interests that are doing that. It should be the people of our districts that are coming in to speak with us and that we're working on their behalf. And so that's the way that I would approach the role.
Yeah, lobbyists did get a bad name over the years, and some people are right about that, that they can buy favor with their money. Sure can. Okay, it's hard to vote against somebody, some organization that just donated a gob of money to you, which gobs don't come my way, by the way. I'm not in leadership. However, where do you think a lot of ideas come from? So if you have somebody that represents, let's say the NRA, okay, comes in and says, hey, we need a piece of legislation that does this, or hey, we need a vote against these people that are trying to stop whatever that the feds or somebody else is blank put on. Are you supposed to say, no, we're not interested in hearing from the organization? Not all lobbyists represent bad people. You realize the Girl Scouts of America, or Girl Scouts now, and now it's just Scouting of America, Boy Scouts, they have a lobbyist. Penn State has a lobbyist. Are they bad people? No, but they bring us ideas, and ideas can also come locally. My very first bill came from the sheriff here in Adams County, his predecessor, and he had a good idea. I took it from there. I said, Jim, does this work? He looked at it, we read it, we went over it together, refined a little bit, and it became law as a freshman in the minority.
Next question, well, just to add to the lobbyist part, PSATS is also a lobbyist, just to give a little bit more context. And it is all of the it's all the townships throughout the Commonwealth. There's PSATS, and then there's the Boroughs Association, which are also lobbyists. And the reason why us as a Republican Party pushes really hard to get Republicans, conservative Republicans, to run for your municipal positions is because we have our conventions annually, and we do lobby Pennsylvania for legislation, and we want to keep that on the conservative side, the less government side. But we're the good lobbyists, not the bad ones. The next question on here, if you had a magic wand, what would be the first legislation you would pass? I know that we already addressed that. You wanna add like maybe a second one? What would the second one, everyone already explained what their first piece would be. What would your second one be? Nick?
Gas tax, property tax, on-time budgets.
Okay. Dan?
Second piece, yeah, I'd try and tackle the property tax situation if I had a magic wand. If I had that magic wand that you were talking about, sure. If I was king for a day.
Yeah. Good pun. Lindsay?
Constitutional amendment, property taxes, and the second would be probably the prevailing wage. So the government buildings, like the schools that are being built right now, can potentially, you know, if it's a roof, you know, we can hire a local business and have the economy perpetuate in our municipality.
Okay. And this is for each one, 60 seconds or less. We will start Lindsay, Nick, and then Dan. Please not discuss, because you don't have 10 minutes, okay? So this is not discuss. What is your educational background and work experience, and how has that prepared you for this role? 60 seconds or less.
I went to school. I went to Empire Beauty School because since I was 6, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to go to law school, but I was starting it late, so I wanted to see if I could even do school again. None of that prepared me for this. What did prepare me for this was 28, we're gonna go 28. 42 years of being kicked to the teeth by life. Being the little guy, watching my family struggle X, Y, and Z, being homeless in high school. Those are the things that make me look around my community right now and absolutely disgusted that I have to sit with a little old lady while she's crying and I'm crying. Don't tell me I cried. And we hug because she worked 3 jobs her whole life and now she has to sell her house right now. Doesn't matter if I get elected or they get elected. She's gonna lose it. That's one person that lost that house. So getting kicked in the teeth my whole life is what prepared me for this, I think, the most.
Nick?
Well, people generally think I'm a pretty young guy, but I look at that as an advantage and not a liability. I've lived in Littlestown my entire life. I'm a 6th generation Adams County resident. I went K-12 through the Littlestown Area School District, the school district that I'm serving in today as on the school board as the school board president. Professionally, I grew up in a small business family with my grandfather. My father's asphalt business taught me the values of earning an honest living, hard work, and providing for your family. I currently, when I graduated high school, I started my own business in sports and officiating management. I have about over 200 umpires that work for me, and we assign baseball games throughout York, Adams, and Franklin County, about 4,000 games a year. We manage some of the sports leagues. But I also work with a consulting firm to represent employers in unemployment claims as a professional representative in unemployment hearings to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse in our unemployment system. And I advocate against tax increases mostly in the state legislatures.
Dan?
you heard me say earlier, I grew up on farms, so agriculture's in my blood. I was the last of 5. When I went off to York College, Dad sold the farm because he wasn't gonna handle it anymore himself. You know, I got out of college, some work experience. I went to work for Snyder's at first, then transferred over to Utz. Wound up in management at Utz for a while, out in route sales. Worked in Washington DC, of all places, every day for almost 6 years. That was a lesson in life. Then I got to think, well, if I'm gonna work 80 hours a week, I might as well make me rich rather than somebody else. So we opened up our own businesses, wound up, to keep this under a minute, I will tell you, we transitioned from roofing all the way over into remodeling old buildings and building new buildings. And we're in the rental property business today, which we still, my wife and I still own today. And I'll tell you, it takes that kind of life experience to do this job. You need life experience to do this job. And somebody that's got that background has that life experience.
Can I give a rebuttal to that?
Did he mention your name?
Without mentioning it. I'll do my 30 seconds at the
30
consent of the
seconds, and then I'll
moderator.
give Lindsay 30 seconds if you wanna add something.
Experience matters, but
That's my slogan, by the way.
I know it is. I know it is. But hard work matters, and I think that if you have the values that I have, I've been raised by a great family. I've accomplished a good bit in my short years, and I don't think that age is a reason to try to keep someone out. I think that you gain experience through doing. 20 years ago, when you were elected to the House of Representatives, you didn't have any experience as a state legislator.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. And so I think that when I'm elected, I'm gonna be pretty quick on my feet, I'm going to learn, and I'm gonna get the job done for the residents of Adams County.
Should we get the measuring tapes out now, or just wait?
That's pretty good, I like that.
Thank you.
That was a
Save
good
that
one.
in your pocket for later.
I don't know how many people caught that, but I did.
I think what's most important is any one of us, right? I think our hearts are there. It's about building a community, okay? Nick doesn't have to have 80 years of experience, and Dan doesn't need to be insulted for having 20 years of experience. And even if you haven't experienced something, so long as you have the scope and you want to go out and talk to the people all the time, it's my favorite part. You just gotta solve problems, all of them. Even down to like one injustice is still an injustice, it's unacceptable. That's where I stand.
Okay, so we're done with the cards. We're not done. Are you okay taking questions directly?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna repeat the rules. Keep it civil, no attacks, no name calling. If you have a question for one candidate, make your question for all 3 so they can answer, because there were some questions in here that was directly for one individual candidate. This is a forum for all 3 of them. So if you have a question, please make sure that it can be addressed for all 3 to answer. Anybody have a question? Yes, ma'am.
You talk about reforming property taxes and such on the school district side. We do get funding from the state, but a lot of the money for schools comes from taxes. How would you then supplement that money to the school district if you're not doing property taxes?
First of
Dan,
all,
you wanna take it first, and
Yeah.
then Lindsay and Nick?
Can I ask for a better explanation of what you're trying to get at there? If,
You all speak about like fixing property taxes and lowering property taxes, getting rid of property taxes, but a lot of that property tax dollars goes to the school districts to fund education. So if you were to do that, how would you do that and still?
Like, how would you replace the revenue?
Yeah.
And how would you replace the revenue?
okay. Yeah, if we were to try to abolish your local taxes on your homes, your businesses, whatever, what's called property taxes for schools. The schools aren't gonna operate on less money, okay? So you have to make it up somewhere else. Do we raise the state tax, the state income tax? Do we raise the sales tax? By the way, the last number I heard, it would take about a 14% sales tax in Pennsylvania in order to cover that nut, okay? Nobody would buy anything in Pennsylvania anymore. Your retailers would be out of business pretty quick, and people that live in border counties would be going to the next county that has a 6% sales tax or a 5% and not buying it here. They'd buy it there and come back across. So it's like I said earlier, there's a lot of smart people up there, and they've been trying to figure this one out longer than I've been there, and nobody's been able to come up with a solution, because if you take it from one place or remove it from one place, you've got to take it from another, or you got to raise taxes. How many people in this room would like to see their taxes raised? I bet not many hands are going to go up, except yours. You're rich. But no, in all reality, nobody wants their taxes raised. It's the kiss of death, okay? So how do you do it? But again, I stress, a lot of people come to me and say, why aren't you getting rid of property taxes? Why are my property taxes so high? And I always go back to say, and that's no offense to these guys, they do a hard job being on the school board. And I commend them for doing it, because last time I looked, it doesn't pay a whole lot to be on a school board, okay? And you take a lot of grief, all right? So, but the decisions are made at that level, okay? And if we try to overtake their decisions, again, we go back to that local government, because schools are a local government. They are a taxing authority in a commonwealth that makes them a government. So we're not about to tell them how to run the school. And if they run the school where they have to raise their taxes, that's their business. And I don't get in it, I stay out of it. But we fund as much as we can. It's over a third of our budget.
Lindsay?
Well, he is right, we don't get paid. We're one of only 2 states where it's completely illegal to pay a school board, which has its benefits, because then, you know, it could get a little bit more money motivated. We actually don't have a lot of control over the majority of our budget. And in order to replace that revenue, I think it's gonna have to be, one, the major budget needs overhaul. I feel like, I don't know, what was it, like 13 billion more in this year's proposed budget from Shapiro, by adding more of their entities. It's always add, and the question is, where are we gonna take it from? Why does it always have to be the citizens? Why does it have to be their home? You can, at that point, you can stand nowhere on this planet Earth and breathe air without paying the government or them taking it from you. People come across, they'll stop coming across the state line. Well, maybe so be it, but they keep coming across and benefiting from not paying taxes, while our people are losing their homes to taxes. And nothing personally against Marylanders, but their taxes are ridiculous. They don't like what they did to their state. They come up here, they buy the house, being on the border. They're glad to pay the higher taxes to us. So Grandma Betty has to sell her house because she can't afford to raise taxes, and then someone comes over and buys it, and it's perfectly fine with that. There's gonna be nowhere else for us to run if we keep this up.
Nick?
I'll be brief. One of the things that states like Florida did is, instead of eliminating all property taxes, it's eliminated on owner-occupied primary residences. So if you've got vacation homes in Philadelphia, I don't think Philadelphia is a very big vacation town, but if you've got additional homes, if you have rental properties, if you have commercial properties for businesses and things like that, they still tax those, but people's homes, their primary residence, they don't have to pay the taxes. So that's the way that other states make it that type of income.
Can I ask a rebuttal question, actually?
Ask who?
Nick.
No.
Okay. No, it's a curious one, it's not a jerk one, but okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering if you could explain how that rental property works when that then falls down on the renter.
Well, it's still taxed on the person. It's up to the person that's renting it to decide what their rent is.
But wouldn't that just inflate rental properties and make more people homeless? No?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll look into it, I was just wondering.
All I said is this is what other states do. That was the answer to the question.
Is
If I
anyone
may
else?
chime in, Florida gets a ton of revenue off of tourism. A ton.
So
Of
does,
revenue.
so does Adams County, but our
Not even
taxes are
close to the state of
still
Florida.
going up and up and up.
Yeah, well, their tourism.
We get
dollars-
almost $1 billion a year from tourism, and we're still increasing in taxes, especially for emergency services. Does anyone else have a, yes, ma'am?
On taxes, would you be in favor of a flat income tax across the board, no exemptions, corporations, churches, individuals, whatever, but just have a flat tax, everybody pays 2%, 5%, whatever it be, but there be no exemptions? And is that, do you think that's feasible, and how can that be done?
Who goes
Anybody,
first?
all of you.
All at the same time, just me. I'm open to, for me, I'm open to maybe exploring that. I think I've seen too many exceptions and loopholes for those corporations and business.
No exceptions. No exceptions.
Right, that would eliminate it.
That way, the local school boards can't keep raising our taxes, our, our income tax, our state taxes keep going up. That way, it could replace the taxes that you want to, take away from the school. You're saying that the school taxes, how would you fund your schools? If everybody pays an income tax, no exceptions across the board.
The only question that I would then want to put more research and time into is what about the low income families? Because 2% sometimes really matters. So if your bills are $4,000 a month, but you're only bringing $2,000 a month, that could be a week full of meals, right? And not everybody who's low income, which seems to be a common misconception, is lazy.
Well, right now, they have a limit who pays any kind of taxes. and they
Okay,
have
we'll give Dan an opportunity.
All right, in Pennsylvania, as far as income tax is concerned, we've had a flat tax of 3.07% for longer than I've been in office, and nobody has the guts to raise it, and I won't vote to raise it either. As far as the sales tax, that's been 6% for longer than I've been in office. The only thing that's gone up, like I explained a little while ago, is that I know tax-wise, is the tax on fuel. And that's because PennDOT can't run on the same amount of money they ran on 25 or 30 years ago. What I am a big proponent of, and I put a bill out, and I run it every session, to increase the funding in our budget for what's called the property tax rent rebate program. And that's for low-income people, whether you're a renter or whether you're a homeowner, and there's criteria that you need to qualify under. God knows, my staff helps people, mainly elderly people, but some just low-income people, tons of them every year. They come into the office and we help them they help them fill out. They're the experts. My staff is the expert, not me. I work mainly in Harrisburg. But if we enhance that, put more money into it, which we do, it's just not enough, okay? If we could figure out a way to put more money, again, take it from somewhere else and move it over there, and there's places we can get it. For example, we put about $750 million a year into 5 what's called the non-preferred schools. That's Penn State, Lincoln Temple, and Penn Vet, okay? If we cut some of that out and put it in property tax relief fund, it would help the low income and the seniors, and I'm a big proponent of that. Sorry, I'm just trying to
That's
explain.
okay, I was just going in the side of the room
I
that you
thought
were
you were
looking at.
dancing or something.
Yeah. Nick?
I think that that's a very valid possible solution to addressing the property taxes, because it would equate to that flat tax, whatever rate you would set it, on people's income. So it'd be the percentage based on their income instead of a static amount based on their assessed value of their property based upon a millage rate that the school district or municipality sets for everybody. So I think that could be a viable solution.
There was someone over this side that had a question, I believe. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Can you speak just a little bit louder so we can have it
Okay,
picked up on the
I
camera?
have a question, not coming from the state of Pennsylvania and being confused about the whole Commonwealth. And I really believe education is important and students need to get good education for our future. But there seems to be a lot of unnecessary duplication of a lot of people running the schools, getting high salaries, and it happens again and again all over Pennsylvania. It seems like if we could consolidate that in some states, the supervisors have a lot more, students that they look after. But here we have so much high salaries, if we could consolidate some of that and share the money, throughout the whole state, it would seem like we could run our school systems for a lot less money.
Okay,
It's
so
just
what
like-
is
it's
the
just like-
question? What is the
So
question?
that's the question. Could that be a possibility?
Example being like.
Nick would be the first.
No, I was asking for clarification. Is he asking, example being?
I think what
one
he is saying is that
superintendent
in
for
the
county?
school districts, the high-paying administrative is much
A lot of people-
higher than the lower. The student to administrative ratio has exploded and it continues to explode, and enrollment reducing. And Nick, 60 seconds.
Yeah. I think that would be, because we're the Commonwealth and we have the extra layer of government, I think that it would be very difficult for something like that to ever happen. But I have a lot of experience working with these school districts in these other states. I represent them for their unemployment claims in pretty much every school district in Maryland, Baltimore County, Frederick County, Montgomery, Prince George's. And what I will tell you is, at the surface level, they have one school board, one superintendent for a lot of different schools. But there are a lot more layers of district office than there are in Littlestown or Conewago or the places in Adams County in Pennsylvania. There's I talked to a person that's the director of absence management, and then they've got a HR director above them, and then a chief HR person above them, and then somebody else above them, and then the superintendent. So you've got a lot more layers. I'd be curious to see a study of how much would actually be saved if something went to a program like that. Maybe we save them a lot of money by having 9 unpaid school board members in every. So.
Tan?
We've already done that study years ago, and the study shows that it really is not a big savings. Plus, put on top of that, remember what I said just a little while ago? We are a Commonwealth versus a state, Pennsylvania versus Maryland. Down in Maryland, the county is the lowest level of government, okay? Here, you have local governments, which is your townships, your boroughs, local municipalities, and our school systems. Okay, any taxing authority is considered a government in Pennsylvania. So it would be up to them to say, hey guys, y'all want to get rid of your superintendents? And I don't know one of them that would say, yes, let's get rid of superintendent and just have one for the county. But we would have to be a state in order to do that instead of a Commonwealth. And it's not a big money savings. It really isn't.
I think that if we did that model, that what Nick pointed out is the implementation of then 27 other, just a random number, levels would absolutely be implemented. I don't know about, well, I do know a little bit of the other superintendents. Mine works from like 6 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night every single day. A huge factor into why we're losing superintendents and teachers is the mandates coming down from whatever powers that be. And so that's why there's been a slight uptick in having to hire administrators, is to get additional administrators, is to get what I think and seem to be hearing is unnecessary check marks in a box done.
Someone, yes, sir, all the way.
I'd like to know what type of coalition you people, whatever would make. In other words, everyone in this room votes in a national election, and everyone in this room vote is nullified by the development that's coming out of Philadelphia. So I'm kind of tired of it, and I'm real tired of it. And everybody in this room is tired of it. Probably people, depending on who you talk to, some people are tired of it. But I'd like to know what you plan on doing to build a coalition, because you're gonna be one of many people. And, you're fighting an uphill battle, to say the least. Because Pennsylvania used to be a blue state, or a red state. It's become more of a blue state. But if you look at the map, it should be a blue state, it should be a red state. So what kind of coalition have you people plan on building? Because we pretty much are represented.
I could take a shot at it.
Lindsay first.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that you ended that with "we feel unrepresented."
Yeah.
I like to reread the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution frequently.
Well, I know.
And that's a valid point.
You don't need to point it past it. But I need to know, really, this question is really for Dan, because you've been in there for 20 years, and I'm kind of sick and tired of voting. But I'm low this year, but I want some action, man.
So let me see if I got your question right. You'd like to know why Philadelphia?
What kind of coalition do you plan on building? Because you look at the state of Pennsylvania, and it's mostly red.
Geographically, you're correct.
Yeah.
Not population.
Sir,
But,
sir, to prevent this from going back and forth, there are other questions
Yeah.
from other attendees, so if you could just answer that question and
I
then
think
we'll
your
give
question
Nick an
is,
opportunity.
why does Philadelphia always seem to get the lion's share?
Well, no, not
Or-
just Philadelphia, but I'm tired of being unrepresented.
I'm not even sure I understand what you mean by not being represented because of Philadelphia. Here, let me,
No, because of, every election that I vote in, I feel unrepresented. Because,
I think I could answer his question for him. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, the blue counties, because of the population, their voter registration outnumbers the red counties. There are more red counties in Pennsylvania.
I understand that, I understand all that.
Okay,
But-
so we need a direct
as far as
question.
representation goes,
Mhm.
I want someone that's willing to build a coalition, that's willing to introduce a bill and get it supported by people in Franklin County, people in other counties, in Cumberland County.
A bill for what?
Any bill. Any, you take the, okay, I said.
So maybe I'll answer.
Yes, we'll have Nick
Yeah,
answer.
I'll answer, because I think this goes back to a point I was making earlier. We can't just rely on the fact that, okay, we're in the minority, and so there's nothing that the Republicans can do for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's not what I look at and see as my job. I hope to be in the majority. But if we're in the minority, I'm gonna be working just as hard, if not harder, to work across the aisle and work with.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna move on to another question, sir. I'm sorry.
But to work across the aisle and use the art of persuasion. We have to persuade our colleagues on the other side. There has to be one moderate, or two moderate, or three moderate Democrats that we could get over. We're never gonna compromise on our most fundamental ideals. But for the things that I'm running on in my platform are common sense. And those things, nobody should be against. And we're gonna fight every day to make them happen.
Thank you. Yes, Glennie.
Okay, so I do have a question too, but am I allowed to give a clarifying thought on the previous question as well?
No, please just ask a question because there are so many other people in here. I'm sorry.
You don't have a lot of time, so, but, you know, as I'm sure many of us were already aware before coming here, and as has been repeatedly specified tonight, Dan Moul is the minority chair of the Agriculture Committee, and that, I would say, it's fair to say that is a fairly influential position in the state legislature. So my question to the three of you is just like, how important do you see that power as having leverage for the people of the 91st District? And I guess specifically for Lindsay and Nick, like how would you compensate for not having such a prestigious committee assignment? What do you think that is a serious concern?
Dan?
I think you
We'll
just
go
said-
Dan, Lindsay, Nick. That's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Right.
Dan. You
That's
answer
fine.
first.
I'll go ahead and answer first. Yes, my position is probably next to transportation chairman, the most highly sought after position in the Republican caucus and probably Democrat caucus as well. And gotta keep in mind, agriculture is the #1 industry, not only in Pennsylvania, it's also the #1 industry here in Adams County, by far. It's not even close. Tourism is second, okay? So yes, I'm influential, very influential when it comes to agriculture issues. Outside of that, those chairmen of the other committees are influential in what they do. Remember me telling everyone here just a little while ago, I brought in the Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, to a meeting in my office along with the chairman, the Democrat chairman of the Agriculture Committee, and we worked it out that we are going to put the bill out in my name to move more funding into to save our fruit farmers from this crisis. Somebody that's not influential like that can't do that. I'm fortunate enough to have been there long enough, and I deserve that position. And with my background, they made me chairman of agriculture, and I do a really, really good job at it.
Lindsay?
That's a fair question, but what happens, no offense, Dan, and I'm not wishing this on you, but what happens if Dan gets hit by a bus tomorrow? Someone at some point in the future is going to have.
Please don't wish that on me.
Okay, I'm not,
My
I
wife
swear.
would be so upset.
I'm gonna feel awful if he gets hit by a bus tomorrow. That's
I
on
would
you.
too.
But the point is at some point, Dan's 20 years in, and even if he doesn't get hit by a bus, I'm sure Dan would like to retire and I don't know, enjoy his life with his wife, right? So at some point, that same question is still gonna have to be asked. So to me, I think you have learning who your allies and foes are essentially, but then there's a time to be friendly and then there's a time to have a backbone and a mouth. And if anybody in here knows me, I think you know I have both of those. I do wanna work on that just a little bit, but I know when to speak up and fight.
Nick?
Thanks for the question. I look at this probably a little bit differently. As state representative, I'm going to have responsibility over all issues that are brought to me by my constituents. If just because I'm not on the specific committee that has to do with, doesn't mean that I can't propose a bill, work with the people that are on that committee, and try to get something through. I'm not gonna throw my hands up in the air and say, like if I'm on local government, and if somebody brings me something to do with agriculture and just say, sorry, nothing I can do because that's agriculture, go to that agriculture people. No, I'm the state representative, I can propose legislation on any issue in our Commonwealth and the issues that are affecting our constituents, and so committee assignments aren't gonna hold me back.
Okay. You had a question?
I did. First and foremost, great job all of you. A couple months ago I was there, it's miserable, I get it. But it's important. And sitting here on this side of it, it's made me realize a couple things. And one of the important things is, as an elected sheriff, I represent them as well because they put me here. And that's important for you guys to understand. Dan, I'm sure you know that. We have Nina here, who's the mayor of wonderful York Springs, and I see Kathy over here. So other elected officials are here. And one of my questions that comes into play here from the law enforcement side is we run into struggles, right? And even at our elected level, how are you, as soon-to-be elected individuals, gonna help your other local elected officials? For instance, one of the things that we're facing is I was facing 6 open spots. It's terrible to try to compete with surrounding counties for deputies because our pay is nowhere near what the surrounding ones are. So it's challenging, right? One of the other challenging things is you guys deal with PCCD maybe sometimes. I can't put a deputy in the academy for an entire year. He expires or she expires deputy status in a year. That makes no sense if I can't schedule for a year out. How are you willing to work with the people that it's gonna affect? Because my situation affects all of them in this room, because I'm jeopardizing their safety and security. So how are you gonna work with your local elected officials to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Nick, Dan, Lindsay.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Josh. Thank you for asking it. And, yeah, we're local elected officials. I want to work with everyone, the sheriffs, the county road people, the municipalities, the school boards, because every local government has its own problems and its own needs and its own solutions. And that's what we are there for. That's what the state representative is there to fight for you on the state level. Just the same as we're fighting for the citizens that aren't elected, we're fighting for our local governments and municipalities. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to run. I'm an elected official in Littlestown Area School District, and there's so much that the state controls that we have no say over on the local level. And so that's why I found it important to run for this position and to make some change for the people all across Adams County.
Do you remember about an hour ago?
We do.
We do.
I know what you're saying. We do.
When I said my very first bill as a freshman in the minority, Jim Muller brought me that idea. We as legislators can't possibly know it all. There's a whole lot more that we don't know than what we do know. We're human. He brought me the idea. It was a deadbeat parents bill. Very first bill I ever did, and got it signed into law, okay? Which it was a very good bill. It was Jim's idea. We talked about lobbyists also. A lot of people hate lobbyists just because it's a bad name. If your association's lobbyist came into my office and said, hey, Dan, there's a bill that we would like to have written. First of all, they wouldn't come to us, they'd go to judiciary because I'm agriculture, but doesn't mean I can't support it. If you came to me personally, like Jim did, I'd say, yeah, is your association up on this? I'll write the bill, okay? It would stand a much better chance if it's written by the chairman of judiciary, because he can run it rather than me, okay? I don't want it to get buried and lost in the mess. So that's how I would handle that. But you guys gotta bring us the ideas and say, this is what needs to be changed. That's where I say, not all lobbyists are bad people, because every association has one, yours as well. So if they bring us the ideas and it's worth running, we'll write the bill. I don't care who you are, we'll write the bill for you. If they won't do it, I will, if it's a good bill.
Actually sitting on school board and some of the things that Nick had pointed out, I've seen that a lot. And regardless of whether y'all choose me or not, being on school board, I've actually advocated for the school boards to join, even on a state level, so we can see potentially what's coming down the pike. And I have already, the education committee up there that I told you I was watching, I've already started to reach out, as I will still do whether I get elected or not, pointing out some flaws. Because I'm not so sure that they know they're there, so I don't think you can really be mad at people if they don't know they're there. You have to point them out first, the seat. And if it is a state level seat that I happen to get, yes, we should, I feel like what you see and you're in the policies that are affecting you, when you see the flaw, point it out so we can correct it. Don't just sit around and, policy is policy, we have to do it. Okay, we'll fix it if you see the flaw. It seems pretty simple to me.
Does anyone over here have a question? Anyone left over here? Anyone? Yes, sir. Can you speak up so we can all hear? Thank you.
So one of the big topics these days with like energy, like fossil fuels, solar, wind. But one I don't really hear talked about much, and I'm sure as we all know in this room, Pennsylvania has a very personal and somewhat traumatic history with it, is nuclear energy. And I'm just wondering if any of you have any thoughts of that as a future energy source.
We'll get Lindsay, Nick, and Dan.
That is a phenomenal question, and you seem relatively young, so I'm highly impressed with that, actually. This is not one of the rabbit holes I've been down, except for the traumatic part of it. I'm all aware of that. But I did, I think, come across one or two articles that I've read. If we can get over the PTSD from the previous incident, I definitely would like to know more about that. I am kind of pro-solar, but for independent, not big solar farms that take farmland. Alternate energy, seeing as Med Ed is off their rocker, I think it's every option and every idea is worth looking at. And so, if you know super lot about it, and you wanna like share that with me, that would be awesome.
Nick?
Yeah, if we can do it in a safe manner, then I think that across the board, we need to unlock Pennsylvania's energy potential. And that's one of the big ways that we're going to bring down prices, make Pennsylvania affordable again, and advance and do some of the things that we're going to do. So, yeah.
I think if I'm not mistaken, your question was directed at nuclear energy.
Yeah, like what are your guys' thoughts on it as an energy
Okay.
source, especially considering?
Yeah, I
the
won't go
Fremont
down to
model?
solar panel windmills, because your
Yeah.
question is geared toward nuclear, okay? And I'm totally fine. It's the cleanest energy we have by far, no question about it. The problem is it's super expensive to make. Give you an example, I toured the Hunterstown, gas plant right here, one time, and they said, we can operate so much, cheaper here because what it takes roughly 40 people to run our plant, it would take for the same amount of energy about 400 to run a nuclear plant. Plus security is a big issue at a nuclear power plant as well. But I'm all for nuclear. If you could figure out a way to do it a lot cheaper and not, put a strain on our environment and the possibility of it meltdown, I'm all for nuclear. As far as the solar goes, I'm okay with solar. I'm an all above person, as long as you don't use my tax dollars to do it. You wanna cover your house with them, that's your business, but don't ask me to help pay for it.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the state budget a minute, wouldn't it just make sense to have pass a bill that says, you guys don't get the budget done by 30 June, you don't go home?
Dan?
Been there, done that. I'm the guy that started the taxpayer caucus. I don't know how many people remember that, when we had that big budget impasse that went into October. They sent us home and I stood up in the caucus room and I said, my people didn't elect me to quit. I am coming back in here Monday morning. I'll be in the appropriations meeting room. Anybody that wants to join me, at the beginning of the first week, that Monday, I had about 6 people. By the end of the week, I had about, maybe 10 or 12. And going into week 2 and 3, I had about 30 members sitting in that room with me. And we went all summer long, 4 days a week. We got guys driving in from Altoona. But you're right, I agree, and we shouldn't go home until we have solutions on that budget. It would be nice to get it all done. I'll very quickly tell you this. The number
In 9 seconds.
What's that?
In 9 seconds.
The number we settled on this budget that we're working in right now, $50.2 billion, they offered that very early on in early July. We took till October or so to get the actual budget, okay? And we came back to the 50.2. We could have been done in the first couple weeks in July, but we didn't do it.
Lindsay?
Yeah, they shouldn't be going home. They also shouldn't be writing out, no offense yet, the expenditures to do so, $9,000 a day when they're in office. However, that doesn't also mean that they should be up until 2 a.m. making it right in the middle of the night. Because sometimes I think if people work extremely tired, they would just concede. Kind of like what happened in 1913.
Nick?
Yeah, I think that unfortunately, it seems like we have to give them a disincentive for not doing their job because they don't seem to want to do their jobs. And so whether that be the pay thing that we discussed earlier, the making them stay, we've got to do something. And one of the big things is you've got the establishment has made it clear that they feel like they have no need to follow the June 30th deadline. So until you elect different people, it's never going to change.
Okay, so we are at the 2-hour mark, and these are metal chairs, and I'm in heels, and they're on, it's been 2 hours. So, will each one of you commit to support the Republican nominee and get your supporters to also support the Republican nominee? Yes or no? Lindsay?
Maybe.
Just maybe?
Maybe. I'm not gonna brainwash supporters into doing it, but
Will you support the nominee? Okay. Dan,
Yes, I will vote for myself.
will you support the nominee should you
I will
not
vote for the
go?
Republican that makes it to the
The winner
general
out of the
election.
primary?
that is, yes.
Will
that
you
is a
support,
fair
okay,
answer.
Nick?
Yes, I'm a Republican. I will support the Republican nominee in the general election and not the
Okay.
Democrat.
I appreciate that. Just gotta have a little fun, guys. Life's about living.
Okay, so in closing, we'll give 90 seconds for each. In your closing statement, tell us why, and please everyone remain seated when they're done. In your closing statement, tell us why Republican voters in Adams County should choose you as their nominee for state representative. Lindsay?
If you told me 5 years ago I was gonna be a politician, I would've laughed, you would've laughed, we would've all fell off our chair. I have no political politician goals. I just see some things, a lot of things, and I'm kinda angry about that. And I guess I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, I'll just go do it myself, right? But I think the information goes the wrong way. So I wanna hear from the citizens, I wanna hear from the local government. If you don't want me, that's okay too. You know, it doesn't have to be me, but if you do, I'm here.
Dan?
Oh, you want me to go next? Incumbent, that's fine. I thought you'd make me last, but that's all right. You're not just electing me. You're electing a team, okay? 2 of my team members are sitting back here that work in my district office. They've been with me, I'm gonna just ballpark it, say roughly 18 years of my 20. They are experts at what they do. They are experts at constituent services. They have all the numbers for the deputy secretaries in just about every agency there is. If you come into my office, we serve you. We don't ask how you're registered to vote. We don't care. My job as state representative is not just to represent Republicans, not just to represent Democrats, not just to represent independents or Green Party or anything else. My job is to represent everyone in the 91st district, and I'm gonna even expand that. My job is to represent everyone in Adams County. Because if you come to me from Kathy's district, or somebody from my district goes to Kathy's district office, they're gonna get represented, and we're gonna do our very best to find you the answer to help solve your problem. We're problem solvers, okay? Now, as far as myself is concerned, yeah, I've been there for 20 years, okay? I've got tenure. It's great. I've built bridges. I've got 16 bills signed into my name by a governor, okay? There's people up there that have been there for 15 years, still don't have a bill. I've brought over $35 million in grants to Adams County. Over $35 million. And I got $80 million reserved between the county, the state, and the feds to build a road in Adams County. That's been on the books for over 40 years. I'm finally getting it done. The question is, do you want to trade somebody with this kind of expertise, this kind of knowledge, and this kind of power in Harrisburg to start over with somebody that's going to start out at ground zero? No offense to anybody, but would you really do that? If you're not interested in hearing what I have to say, then that's fine, but the
It's
bottom line is.
closing statement, yeah, you had 90 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm probably about 80 right by now, right?
Probably like 2 minutes.
That's all right, you can have 2 minutes to.
I think that tonight you heard 2 different visions for the future of Adams County. One that's just about maintaining the status quo and what may have been done in the past, and the other is about looking into the future and bringing up solutions for the future of Adams County. Dan, as he mentioned, when he was a freshman in the minority, he got a bill across the House floor. That's proof that you can get things done as a freshman. You don't have to have 20 years of experience to get things done in the House. You don't have to have all of this experience. It's great to have, But I think that the citizens of Adams County are tired of the status quo. And what I'll say is that this is an opportunity for you all to make a decision, whether you're going to continue to let the establishment people in Harrisburg decide the future of Adams County, or whether it's going to be you, the voters. And I think that it's very important that we move forward with new leadership, a fresh voice for the people of Adams County, and I think that it's time for a change.
Thank you. Now, I would like to thank all three candidates for spending 2 hours. And everyone else for sitting on these chairs. If anybody wants to donate 76 cushions to the ACRC so we can do this again with a little bit more comfort, we'll accept a seat cushion donation. I just want to remind everyone that the last day to register to vote is May 4th, so if there are any independents, unaffiliated, libertarians, or Democrats in the room, you've got until May 4th to change to Republican to vote for one of the three candidates. And May 12th is the last day that you can request your mail-in ballots. What started Tuesday was the in-person voting with your mail-in ballot. You can go to the election office, you can request your mail-in ballot, you can fill it out, and then you can bank it. All in the same day, all in the same visit. These are important dates. This is an important election for Adams County. The voters shape the future for Adams County. And our timer here would like to add something.
I just want to let everybody know, I know how winded Dan can be. So with everything going on, when I could possibly, if they went over, I gave the additional candidates time also. So rightfully, I think Lindsay has 15 seconds that she could use. So like I said, I tried to do my best to give every candidate the same, except for when Dan went last, I couldn't help it.
So with that said, I greatly appreciate everybody for coming here this evening. This is the Adams County Republican Committee's headquarters. It was renovated back in 2022 to make this a multi-purpose room, so we don't have to spend money in renting locations. Please, everyone drive safe. If you want to ask the candidate an independent question, or pick up some of their literature that's over there, you're more than welcome. Please drive safe.